I realized my peaceful life was in serious danger the moment my daughter-in-law, Chloe, stepped into my dining room and started measuring the walls without my permission. She spoke with absolute authority as if my home already belonged to her. I sat quietly with my hot coffee and watched her run her hands across the solid oak table my late husband, Arthur, had hand-built decades ago. She loudly declared that the main guest bedroom upstairs with the morning sun would belong to her mother, Loretta. Then she casually explained how she and my son, Derek, were planning to convert my basement into their private workstation. Loretta smiled in eager agreement while Derek kept his eyes glued to his dinner plate. My son did not say a single word to shield me from their aggressive plan. My name is Evelyn Montgomery, and I have spent over 40 long years building a life within these walls. Arthur and I planted the birch tree in the front yard and painted every single room with our own hands when we were young. When Chloe pulled a measuring tape from her purse, I set my porcelain cup down and stated a firm no to her grand ideas. Chloe brushed off my reaction with a fake laugh and insisted that the property was simply too massive for a single elderly woman. She then revealed a shocking piece of news. She had already canceled the lease on the apartment where Loretta lived. They had created a massive crisis without consulting me and fully expected me to surrender my personal sanctuary to fix their self-made problem. I refused immediately. The following Tuesday morning my doorbell rang bright and early. Chloe stood on the front porch holding two heavy cardboard boxes stacked in her arms. She pushed right past me into the entry hall and dropped them near the bottom of the staircase. She claimed the items would stay there until the official move was completed. Then she drove off without asking for permission. I did not panic or shout after her. Instead, I rolled out my heavy hand truck from the garage and loaded those boxes onto the frame. I wheeled them directly back outside onto the covered front porch where they would stay dry if it rained. Then I sent a quick text to Derek letting him know that his mother-in-law belongings were waiting outside for quick retrieval. Derek called me within an hour sounding utterly exhausted. He complained that I was making things needlessly dramatic by putting the personal items out in the weather. I calmly told my son that placing belongings in my hallway without consent was a boundary violation and a cheap territory grab. He arrived late that evening alone, packed the boxes into his trunk, and drove off without entering. 2 mornings later I caught someone unlocking my front door without knocking. I walked into the main corridor and found Chloe carrying black trash bags, intending to start clearing out my basement space. She casually mentioned that Derek had given her a spare key years ago. I stepped directly into her path, took hold of her wrist firmly, and demanded that she hand over my property key at once. She slammed the key onto the hallway table in a fit of rage, and warned that I would deeply regret pushing my own family away. I picked up the key and reminded her that I was merely protecting my personal boundaries. That very afternoon I hired a certified locksmith to replace every single lock on the building, ensuring that no uninvited person possessed access to my home. Next I drove straight to my local bank branch to make a vital financial change. 4 years I had sent monthly funds to assist with my grandchildren Mason and Ava. Realizing the money was likely being absorbed by parental greed, I opened 2 lock savings accounts for the children. Neither parent could touch those funds until each child reached 18 years of age. Chloe called me furious when the monthly electronic transfer failed to clear. She claimed they needed those funds to pay for summer camp deposits, but I stood my ground and reminded her that my financial gifts were never an entitlement. A few days later Derek came over looking drained, and admitted he was letting his wife control everyone just to avoid constant domestic fights. Derek warned me that Chloe might restrict my access to my grandchildren if I refused to yield. I looked into his eyes and told him that using innocent children as bargaining tools was cowardly behavior. He looked down in shame and left without another word. I realized then that my strict boundaries were finally forcing my son to face the uncomfortable truth about his marriage. A week later Loretta arrived at my front gate looking anxious and lost. I invited her inside for hot tea and discovered that Chloe had outright lied to her, claiming I had happily invited her to move into the house. Loretta broke down in tears over her lost lease. I comforted her and promised to assist her in securing a comfortable apartment at a local senior living residence. On Sunday afternoon Chloe and Derek arrived with legal paperwork alongside Loretta and the children. Chloe presented contract forms that would legally transfer the deed of my house to Derek, while forcing me into the small basement space. She claimed it was practical for the whole family, but I pushed the documents back across the table without reading them. I informed them that Arthur and I worked double shifts for decades to construct this life. I declared that if anyone attempted to force me out, I would rewrite my legal will the very next morning and leave the entire property to a local charity for widows. Loretta immediately stood up, scolded her daughter for deceiving everyone, and walked out the door. Months passed into late autumn as genuine peace slowly returned to my daily routine. One chilly November evening, Derek knocked on my front door alone. He looked thin and weathered, but his posture was completely different. As we sat at the kitchen table, he shared that he and Chloe were officially separating because he could no longer tolerate her control and endless manipulation. He apologized with tears in his eyes for failing to stand up for his mother much sooner. He explained that Loretta was thriving in her new community, and that he was moving into a modest apartment down the road. He asked if he could visit for Sunday dinner with the kids, not to ask for keys or financial favors, but simply to rebuild our relationship as family. We embraced warmly at the door before he headed back to his car. I locked my door with my new key, walked upstairs to the bedroom with the sunrise view, and smiled at the quiet dignity of my home. Setting firm boundaries had preserved my freedom and saved my son. If you enjoyed this emotional journey, please hit the subscribe button and click the video on your end screen now to watch more stories.